Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Chris with a C. Hope you are doing well. Thank you very much for joining me today. Right, okay guys, following on from the Outcast 8S EXB video, obviously the setup guide and everything else we did on the channel. You guys seem to enjoy that, and I do appreciate taking the time out to watch a video. Fingers crossed it was actually helpful. Maybe you picked up on a few bits that were of interest for you when setting up this truck. You know, let's be honest, it is a big truck, and you spend all this money on a vehicle like this, and you want to make sure it's right before you go out and start using it properly. Now, with that being said and done, I want to say a huge thank you to one of my channel subscribers, Doug Morgan. Doug Morgan is from North Alberta, Canada, watches the channel on a regular basis, and Doug actually has his own channel as well. Where same sort of vein as me, goes out, uses trucks, isn't a reviewer or anything like that, buys his own trucks and goes out and uses them as fun. What Doug noticed on the setup video was a little tip that I thought you guys should know about. And these trucks have a habit, because of the weight of them, stripping out the screws in the bulkhead. Now what happens is, obviously on a heavy impact, all the weight comes down, and then the centrifugal force basically pushes that bulkhead up, and then the screws strip out, and then you're left with having to buy new bulkheads for your truck, and no one wants that. I mean, let's be honest, we spend a lot of money on these vehicles, and it is nice to know that when you go out, you've got a bit of peace of mind knowing that essentially you've done everything in your power to make sure your first run goes right and going forward. So what Doug mentioned was the screws in the truck are M5 by M20s, okay? And then the ones at the front are even smaller again. No, sorry, not M20s. They're shorter than that. I do apologise. I think they're more like 10s. So he basically sent me a video showing, he did a private video on his channel showing how to upgrade the screws and stuff. Now, I've got a friend here called Martin. Martin is a metal worker. As you know, he's been on the channel plenty of times. We call him Naughty Norman Price. We go out and have a lot of fun. We bash together. And Martin was a metal worker. He's now medically retired, bless him. But he nipped down to the local hardware store and picked up the screws for me. Now, what Doug said in his email was to get, let me just get the correct sizes for you, was M5 by M20 screws, okay? Make sure, obviously, they're hardened screws. M5 by M20 are the ones you want to pick up for the rear. So you have two at the rear here and two at the rear at the back of the truck. They need to be cut down to 18, because you can't actually buy an 18 straight off a shelf. It's quite hard to actually get hold of in most places, so it turns out. And also then you want to replace the other screws with M5 by M25 basically. So what that'll actually do is the screws will go further into the bulkhead without having to drill holes or make any changes, and giving you the maximum amount of grip. Now, it's not to say that you're not going to strip any screws out. You send the truck this heavy into the air, you might actually do that. Now, for me personally, I don't essentially send my trucks that hard. So just this little upgrade here, and it is a little upgrade, should help you prolong the life of your bulkhead. So that's a good thing. What I'm also going to do in this video, as I mentioned, big shout out to my friend Robbie Bain for sending over the correct shock oil. Is I'm going to go from what is 700 CST in the front of the truck. Because this shock was leaking out of the box, I'm actually going to top it up with 900 CST 70 weight. Basically what I'll do is give it a little bit more kind of strength in the front of the truck, obviously on impact and any sort of bumps. It'll slow down the rebound rate a little bit as well, just essentially helping the truck to kind of steady itself on a large landing. Again, I don't particularly send them that high, so just that change alone before I do anything else should really definitely help the front end of the truck and the handling. I'm going to pause the video 2 secs. We're going to turn the truck upside down on its roof. I'll start taking the screws out. I'll show you what the length of the stock screws are, show you the screws we're going to be putting in, and go from there. Right, okay, so as you can see, guys, I have got one silver screw in the chassis at the moment, and for good reason, all right? I'm going to show you now. So these are the screws that Arrma provide there. All right, that's the screw there, M5. Now, the length of these are, let me just zero it out. So the length of these are 16 millimeters. All right. Now the ones that will actually go inside there are 25. All right. So the ones at the back of the bulkhead, you put the M5 by 25 in the back, and then you've got the M5 by 18s, which will go into the front. Now, so the difference there is quite substantial. You're talking 9 mil. There you go. That is actually showing on the camera, guys. I need to put a new battery in it a sec anyway, but it's flashing because the battery needs changing. But yeah, 16 mil on the nail for the Arrmas. And the ones that will actually fit in there are 25. So yeah, just under 25, but there, yeah, 25. Yeah, 25. So 9 mil difference. Quite a big difference, really, when you consider, and this is why people are stripping them out, is the bulkhead will actually take a longer screw. So what Arrma's done is very much a one-size-fits-all scenario. And as you can see, just alone, even if you're looking at them, these M25 screws, M5 by 25 screws, are much more substantial when trying to grip hold of that bulkhead and keeping the bulkhead attached to the chassis. So I'm going to put you on a time lapse now. I'm going to swap all the screws around. In fact, no, I won't. Actually, what I'll do, I'll pause the camera 2 seconds. I'll take the front one out and we'll compare the front. Right, okay, so I've taken one out of the front for you guys. The actual difference isn't as big on the front. You've got the 16 mil is what Arrma fitted, and 18 is what we're going in for. So obviously the 18 mil just gives you an extra 2 mil, which isn't as substantial of an upgrade as the ones at the rear, but the ones at the rear are the known for stripping out. They're the ones that tend to go. Obviously must be where the weight of the whole vehicle presses down that big chassis, and everything in the center pushes right down, goes to chassis slap, and then rips the screws out. So I'm going to go ahead now and replace all the screws, and I'll come back to you once I'm done. Right, okay guys, so changed all the screws out. So obviously we've got the M5 by 25 in the rear of both bulkheads, and the M5 by 18 in the front of both bulkheads. So e.g. if you're looking at the front and they're looking at the front face on the rear, they're the ones we swapped out. Cost wise is pennies really in comparison to what a bulkhead would cost. So that upgrade is definitely a good one in my opinion, and especially when you consider the extra kind of thread you've got on the rear parts, which are the bits that strip out on a regular basis. I'm going to turn the car over now, and then we'll start getting the shocks apart. But a huge thank you to Doug Morgan for pointing this out and sending a video over, telling me on what to do, on how to do it, and what it, you know, basically why I should be doing it. And huge thank you to Martin Price for obviously making sure I've got the hardware for the car as well, and obviously changing over the screws from a M20 to an M18, so I don't have to go out and drill the bulkheads out. So nice and easy upgrade. Fingers crossed, obviously that is going to help the truck further down the line. If I do strip another bulkhead, or if I do strip a bulkhead I should say, it might be worth looking at maybe metal bulkheads, but I don't really want to go down that route because it is heavy truck anyway, and I don't really want to keep adding weight to the truck. Gonna get these shocks off now. Right, okay, so these are the shocks, obviously come with the EXB, guys. Nice amount of travel on them, and spring rate is really nice actually in comparison to how my X-Max one were. So just taking the shock perch off, obviously take the spring off, and then I'm going to open up the top of these. Now, as I say, I'm going to change the fluid over. There's 700 CST in the truck from stock. There is shock oil inside, as you can see. There's plenty of shock oil. It says brand new, never been run. Just going to place that in there with a homemade shock stand a second. I'm going to dump that out, and then I'm going to thicken up the front shocks ever so slightly. So 200 CST isn't the end of the world. But we're going to put going up 200 CST is what we're doing. What I'd recommend you doing is obviously let the shocks completely empty out now. So that's one. And now's a good time to check the nuts inside as well. I think that one is done up nicely, so there's no issues there. Same again with this one. Take a shock perch off. And then loosen the top off. Like so. And I think this is the leaky one because I've got a bit of residue on my hand there. So it'll be interesting to find out exactly what is in it. Okay, so I can see that the top of the diaphragm is deformed. So that possibly might be the reason. We'll have a look at that in a second. So that is done at factory level, as you can see. So I'm hoping I can get that back in. And there was shock oil inside it, but it was just, I think, where the diaphragm wasn't put in at the factory. And yeah, just carelessly done up without checking. So let's give the shock a bit of a wipe down. And I want to see if that diaphragm is A-OK. Because otherwise, I've got a bit of a warranty claim going on. Doesn't seem to be broken, but it is deformed. Ever so slightly. No more shock oil in there. And no more shock oil in there. Right. Let's have a look at this. So as you can see inside there, obviously that's how the diaphragm should look like. And then this one, where they've tightened it down on this corner. So if I can get it back in there, it should be alright actually. What they've done is basically just tightened it down regardless. Get myself a little Allen key just to make sure I've got that diaphragm sat in the top. Like so. Yeah, I think we're alright here. But yeah, again, this is why we check over our trucks before using them, guys. There you go. So that's now inside. I'm going to give that a wipe down. I'm going to go ahead and top the shocks up now with 700 CST. I am using, blasphemy here, guys, I'm using Traxxas 70 weight. Only because that was what I had on hand, is what was given to me. I know all you Arrma guys are literally rolling over in your beds right now. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be using. But yeah, as you can see, we've now got both the diaphragms in the shock. Fingers crossed these won't leak now. And just to let you know, guys, before we move on further, I am waiting on some parts for this truck. Now, I said I wasn't going to upgrade. I did mention no upgrades on the truck or anything like that. Now, on the comment section of the unboxing and also the first setup of the truck, M2C commented. M2C guys, no need to kind of tell you who they are. make absolutely excellent, in fact, I got an M2C part here, absolutely excellent upgrades for your truck. This one's for my XRT, is the M2C ESE plate, so I'm going to be putting that on the XRT. Avery got in touch and said he's going to send over what he thinks is essential upgrades for this truck. So the guy knows what he's on about. He's been in the hobby for a long time. It's not like just random made parts. The parts that they make are tried and tested by guys who go out and send these things to the moon. He has a strong testing team behind him, and obviously tends to know what he's on about. Now, I'm going to obviously take his judgment on this, and I'm going to install the parts as soon as they come. And I think for good reason. You know, they're not just your average Joe Blogs company making basically just cheap parts for trucks that don't need them. They are parts made by bashers for bashers. So I'm going to go ahead and obviously get those parts installed on the car as soon as they come. And then we should be ready to take the truck out for the first time. And like I say, this isn't a review. This is my own truck. The truck was bought by the channel. This is the first truck I've actually gone out and bought. It was an idea put into my head by my wife. And obviously it's all down to you guys. So I want to make sure that this is going to last me and I'm going to enjoy it. But right, I'm going to fill these up. I'm going to get them back together and we'll see you up top then. Right, okay, just a little side note here, guys. When you're putting shocks back together, there is a little hole right at the top of your shock cap here. And what this does, obviously I let mine stand. But while you tighten them up, what it'll allow is any kind of air to escape. And if you tighten it up, look, what will happen is it'll just push out the air and the shock fluid that it doesn't need. So any microscopic air bubbles will travel to the top here, and on the shock stroke, as you can see, what happens is basically you get a little bit of sort of air movement at the top of the shock bladder. So that will stop obviously the shocks from, as you can see, there's plenty of movement in them shocks now. I like it to come out ever so slightly. Not full shock extent, but it will allow me to go down a full, and then it'll come out just a touch. Right, so that is all done. Let's put this one back together. And I'm going to be doing exactly the same with this side now. So when I put the shock cap on in a sec, I'll be able to show you. Just put the perch back on. And then slide that into the slot. So there you go, that's your shock. That's all done and ready to rock now. So that's one done. Same again with this side. So this is the one where we had with the funny diaphragm in. So just take the spring off. So you can see there's a lot of bubbles in the top here. So what I tend to do is just push all them bubbles out. Like so. And you might want to let them sit a bit longer, it's up to you. But all I tend to do is allow the top of the shock cap to push it out, especially on these bigger 8S shocks. So as you tighten it up, find out where the hole is there. We're still tightening. You'll start seeing some shock fluid come out the top of there. There you go. We're just starting to see it now. There you go. There's all the air escaping back out of the shock. Like so. Push them down. Again, same amount of shock movement. We shouldn't have any leaking now, because obviously that diaphragm's now been put back in place correctly. There you go. One setup shock. So that's good. We've killed two birds with one stone here today. What I might do, actually, don't know. No, I will end the video today just to show you this little tip, because obviously time is getting on. But I'm going to put these back on the shock, and I will close up with the truck in a moment. Right guys, okay, so the truck is on all 4 wheels, as you can see. Now, just to kind of show you where I like my shocks, obviously the truck is just kind of a degree off being level there. That's where I want my arms to be. I have noticed there is no droop screws in here, so I will install some droop screws. I need to find out the correct size to actually make sure I've got some or order some in. So full shock movement down towards the floor, obviously, and then they level themselves back out. So that's exactly where I wanted them. Shocks feel silky smooth, so that is good. And now obviously we've now removed the Arrma hardware, the 60mm M5 screws from the bulkheads, and we've gone with the M5x25 in the rear part of the bulkheads on both bulkheads, and M5x18 in the front. So 2mm more on the front, and it was actually 9mm difference. So big difference in those, as you can see. There you go. One more time. There's the difference. Huge shout out to Doug Morgan, really nice guy. Obviously go check out his channel, guys. We'll put a link in the description to where you can actually find him. You know, all the way from North Alberta, Canada. Obviously sending me messages in the middle of the night. It was absolutely awesome to see, obviously, one of my subscribers reach out and give me a little tip for this truck. I particularly liked his Mojave bashing video. As you know, a big fan of the Mojave. And big shout out to the guys at Panside once again for coming to the rescue. Martin Price in particular, for going to get the hardware, making sure that obviously the screws were trimmed and everything. The other thing is, guys, as we mentioned, when you're doing up your shocks, make sure you're obviously keeping an eye on those diaphragms as well. You're not to pinch them, because essentially that was what was wrong with this shock in particular, was that diaphragm was pinched at point of factory level, e.g. when they're putting the truck together. As I say, I have got parts coming from M2C now. Avery has sent some parts over, so I am waiting for those to turn up at the moment. And I will be installing into the truck before we actually get out, because the weather is on and off. I don't particularly want to go out when it's absolutely sodden and drenched, and I want to give this truck its first maiden voyage with a bit of glorious sun on my back and actually enjoy it. If you've got any more tips, guys, let me know in the comments. Like I say, I've gone through all the truck now. Screws wise, gone over a few little tuning tips. We've done the ESC, we've obviously checked all the screws in the motor. It's literally top to toe being done. I'm glad you're enjoying all the videos on it. Till next time, check the box for more videos and stay awesome. I'll catch you later.